Good evening. Well, along with the stuff that I told about building a house, there's other stuff that you really need to know. Some of it is good news, and some of it isn't such good news. And I may have told you, I may have already put some of this information on the last video. So excuse me if I'm telling you something twice, but what's the harm? So when you actually buy a property here, then uh, it's quite complicated because you've got families that have, like for instance, with Beth comes from a family of 10 children. Now, 10 children, and there would be an inheritance for each one. So everyone gets a piece of the cake, okay, in the event that the parents are died. But they maintain that inheritance. So imagine what that is like when there are 8 or 10 children. Now, we've built houses for people with 11 children. Okay, so big families are the way. And this is what can happen, is that they all have an interest in that piece of property, but they have no interest in developing it or doing anything with it. They have an interest. Now, the law requires that each one of them will agree to the sale. See, now, what you may have is you may have a situation where actually they've all given up their interest, but you still need their approval. So you've got to have a signature. So if there's, as I say, 6, 8, 10 children, all grown up, all now adults, all living in various places, scattered all over, it might be required, as one woman actually told us at the land registry office today, that we would need the birth certificate of one of them. Now, I'd recommend that if you go somewhere to any, this applies to any situation actually. Even if you're in America, and you're required to make a phone call to a government office, and you get someone who is an absolute pig to deal with, the best thing to do is to politely say, okay, I'll think about what you've said, and goodbye, and you put the phone down. Now, I remember when I was in Fort Myers, and a hurricane blew through, and it destroyed a lot of stuff, put people out of work. It creates huge mess ups. People that were going to give you the work are no longer there, or people you were going to give work to, they're no longer there. So it's a big hassle. And I remember at that time I had to make payments to the IRS for back taxes. So I've had to negotiate an amount that you're going to pay, and then that's it. And I had to call the IRS, which wasn't without its dark humour. As a musician, this would, I don't know whether this will travel well as a kind of a funny thing, but it was funny to me, even though it was pretty serious. But you know, when you call up any department of anywhere, they'll have a little bit of music, you see, or you're calling up the IRS, who traditionally are often regarded as the Gestapo of the government. And I called up the IRS to talk about my payments, and there'd just been a hurricane through which had destroyed a lot of the area. Could I get a little bit of leeway, a couple of months off, you know? And the recorded message was, thank you for calling the IRS. Your call is important to us. Please wait and enjoy the music while we find someone to deal with you. And then the music came on, and it went da 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 da. Yeah, it was funny to me at the time. It would be funny to a musician. Anytime that the musician hears bad news, he'll go, oh God, da 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 da. So anyway, finally I got through to a guy, and obviously an American guy. That's not silly to say that because I'm in America, but it could, certainly in Fort Myers or California, it could have been a Mexican with a heavy accent. But it's an American guy, and I'm pleading with him. Listen, we've had this hurricane come through, and where I've been working on Sanibel, and I mentioned this barrier island of incredibly, obscenely rich people living on Sanibel, and I said, and so that source of work is not there for me. And he said, I haven't heard of Sanibel Island, and apparently he must have Googled it, or Googled it very badly. He couldn't find the island. I said, well, I wouldn't be quoting an island that wasn't there, would I? This has destroyed part of my work. I need some help on that. And he was being a son of a gun, I tell you. In the end, I said to him, you know, I'm calling because I need to get some cooperation, and I'm doing the honest thing by calling you rather than just not paying and just reneging on everything. And I said, you know, someday you will call someone and you'll need them to help you. And karma being what it is, they're going to treat you like you're treating me. And must have rung a bell, because he said, okay, I'll give you 3 months. That's not 3 months inside, by the way. That's 3 months leeway. So they allowed me 3 months. So that was a case, not quite a case of, I was about to ring off, but I'd always started into the conversation, and he seemed okay at first. But if you find that people really are behaving badly, you don't educate them. You just politely go on, and you wait for another day. A friend of mine worked at the airport. I mean, there's a lot of stories. There's the one about the ground hostess, the guy comes up and he tries to jump the queue. There's a long line of people who are waiting to get on their flight, and he says to the the ground hostess, look, I've got to go. She said, look, sir, there's a lot of people waiting. You're going to have to wait, you know. And he said, I can't wait. I've got to make this. I'm very busy. I'm a businessman. I'm very busy. I've got to be on this flight. She said, and the lady said, and so is everybody else in this line as well. And he continued to be an absolute a-hole. And then he said, do you know who I am? And the ground hostess by this time had enough of it, so she addressed the long line and she said, does anybody know who this gentleman is? Because apparently he's lost his memory. So he was really mad at that, and he said, F you. And she said, and for that you will have to get in line too, sir. But the one that I liked was my friend who worked in baggage. She worked in baggage at the airport, and there was this man who handled the lost and found desk, and he was one of those that he had a crucifix earring that was upside down, and he had the tattoos, love and hate, and everybody considered that he was a little bit on the dark side. So one day the same guy that obviously same type, came in. This is a true story. He came in and was talking about his luggage, and he was furious that his luggage had been lost, and he ranted and raved at this guy. Right, and and what are you totally inept? What kind of airline are you running? Right? And he really stretched out and vented on this guy, and our dark side friend just continued to look down at his pencil, and he tapped his fingers a little. And then he looked up and he said, "Sir, there's one thing that is between you and getting your luggage back, and that's me. Now, do you want to work with me or not?" And apparently the man quietened right down. So that's a little off the side thing about it. So I've done the best I can. You will have to do the best you can. Bye for now.